The start to 2025 has been a bumpy one, friends. We began the year with many building challenges that continue, and the building and grounds leadership team and staff are working mightily to help us address issues on our lower level at the carriage house. The first two Sundays of this year found us outside of that beloved carriage house on Sunday morning. And now, as we know, the projections of snow today have caused us to rearrange our plans and to look out into what is to come. We could feel a little left out in the cold, a little like the devil has plenty of opportunity to swoop in. Maybe you feel it too in other areas of your life. Cars that won't start, long waits in the doctor's office, travel plans disrupted. Maybe like my son, you've been clamoring, when will the snow just go away? He wants to play soccer today, that the wilderness journey that Jesus begins is one in which he is filled with the Holy Spirit. And I dare say we wish to be filled with the Holy Spirit as 2025 takes hold, especially as we look to the events of tomorrow. In Luke, this journey and the temptation sets the tone for the arduous mission that Jesus is on, and his very identity is at stake. If Jesus had traded in his birthright right then and there with the devil for a feast of bread and a crown of gold, he would not even be a footnote for us. So filled is human history with ambitious rulers. But Jesus is different. He is long-arched leader of love, and the Holy Spirit has taken up residence in him. There is no room left in him for the lies that the devil peddles. Friends, in a day and age where the temptation is great to trade in one version of our one, Jesus shows us staying power. In his book, A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, Pastor Eugene Peterson writes, all the water and all the oceans cannot sink a ship unless it gets inside, nor can all the trouble in the world harm us unless it gets within us. Peterson offers that faith is not a precarious affair of chance escape from satanic assaults. It is the solid, massive, secure experience of God who keeps all evil from getting inside us, who guards our life. That's what this passage is about, a God who guards our lives. Luke shares this wilderness story of Jesus because of how deeply it resonates with the story of anyone trying to walk a path of integrity and love. And it has resonance today when we consider how we want to love and to lead. We see Jesus deny self-glorification and refuse to manipulate others for his own benefit. He will not do miracles on command. He will not take on the trappings of earthly kingship, and he will not bow to ungodly authority. He is not for sale. I want to share that back in June, I had the opportunity to visit the Beinecke Rare Books and Manuscript Library at Yale University. There, the James Weldon Johnson Collection was founded in 1941 to preserve African American writing. There are over 13,000 volumes that include Richard Wright's Native Son and Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. I was with a group that got to leaf through some of the collection's texts with our very own hands, including the original 1927 edition of James Weldon Johnson's sermons, God's Trombones. It was a gift to imagine the artistry and labor that went into this volume. It was a holy time turning the literal pages of history. James Weldon Johnson has been best known to me as the writer of an even earlier poem, Lift Every Voice and Sing. In his hometown of Jackson, Florida, James Weldon Johnson was a teacher and a founder of the nation's first Black daily newspaper and the first African American ever to be admitted to the Florida bar. James Weldon Johnson was born into a time of Reconstruction in this country 6 years after the end of the Civil War. As the son of immigrants from the Bahamas, he grew up in a U.S. where Congress was abandoning its promise to support the millions who had been enslaved. What came was decades of lynchings and violence, segregation and second-class citizenship, especially in the South. As the principal of a segregated school in 1900, James Weldon Johnson was trying to come up with an idea for an assembly to recognize Abraham Lincoln's birthday. He decided to write a poem and took his composer brother, J. Rosamond Johnson, to put it to music. They set to work. James Weldon set to pacing on the front porch, working on the lines, while his brother worked out the tune on the piano inside the house. Soon thereafter, hundreds of school children learned this song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, and they sang it at their assembly that year. Now, the Johnson brothers went on to continued creativity and collaboration, and they didn't think too much on the hymn that they had written. However, the audience, who had heard the piece sung by their children, were so touched. 10 years later, in 1910, it was known across the country. Later in 1919, the NAACP, which James Weldon Johnson was a founder, named it as its official anthem. James Weldon Johnson wrote later that he was always flooded with elation when he heard Lift Every Voice and Sing sung by Black students. Now, this would have been a song familiar to Martin Luther King Jr. Perhaps it is a song that helped tell the tempter's voice in his own young life as he kept the course of his destiny, a collective voice rising up against the ongoing discrimination and double standards of American society. Like Jesus, Dr. King he bore uncomfortable truths and withstood the wilderness. He endured the legacy of racism outlined in Lift Every Voice, and he kept looking to the triumphant energy of God to shore up his body and speak through his moral consciousness. And he died a martyr's death in pursuit of justice. Despite threats and pressure, jeers and prison, he kept the course, pursuing equal rights in this country until his dying breath in 1968. This is a mantle that he had picked up from his ancestors, and it is a torch that he has passed on for every generation, still wrestling with the legacies of white supremacy. I dare say that the voice of the tempter for us can still be heard. Sometimes from outside of us, and sometimes a voice adopted within us, and always it has the capacity to undo us. A false voice that belittles. We aren't good enough, strong enough, worthy enough, or enduring enough to conquer evil and injustice. But what of voices that sound and resound louder than a tempter's snarl? What about the reminder that God has brought us thus far on the way too far to leave us now? What of a reminder through the long road legacy of African American fortitude and refusal to be silenced, that we find the courage to lean into the long road of liberty. May we refuse, friends, to allow evil to take up residence in us. There's just too much room that the Holy Spirit has occupied. What if we follow that lead of Jesus, see our own staying power, and dare to go further? I want you to take some moments, friends, and just a little while we'll have the chance to hear Lift Every Voice and sing together before we approach the communion table. But take just a few moments now if there's something resonating on your heart about the voices that have been loud and persistent, ones that threaten to take you down or bring in a sense of bitterness and insecurity. Think now on the prayers that we would lift up as community on the cusp of MLK Day and inauguration, prayers that can remind us of the identity that is at stake as we choose to follow in the loving footsteps of Jesus.